The breadbasket on the table at Le Bernardin cost more than Alexandra's weekly grocery budget, or at least that's what Marcus liked to
Oh, for
believe.
me, thank
She
you.
watched him
Of
check his
course. I
Rolex
hope
for
you'll
the
like it.
seventh time
I'm
in
sure
20
I will.
minutes. The
I have
Daytona
to
gleamed
show you
under the
this letter.
restaurant's soft
What
amber
is it?
lighting, rose
It's from my
gold,
grandmother.
catching the flicker of the candle between them. 2 years of her savings money, she'd told him, came from her grandmother's estate wrapped around his wrist like a promise he was about to break. Marcus set down his phone. Finally. The blue glow had illuminated his face for the past 10 minutes, turning his features sharp, angular, hungry. Success wore well on him. 5 years together, and she'd watched him transform from a struggling analyst with $180,000 in student debt to a junior partner at Silvercrest Capital, one of Manhattan's most aggressive private equity firms. He thought he'd done it alone. "You're quiet tonight." Marcus didn't look up from his phone. "Just tired." Alexandra Lexi, as he called her, adjusted the cloth napkin on her lap, smoothing invisible wrinkles. The fabric was Egyptian cotton, 800 thread count. She knew because she'd researched it, once curious about the things Marcus took for granted. She wasn't tired. She was observant. A woman knows when the man she loves has mentally vacated the premises. It's in the body language, the way he angled away from her toward the door, toward escape. It's in the details, the passcode he'd changed 3 weeks ago. She'd noticed, though she'd never asked. It's in the names that started appearing in his conversation, casual and frequent, like breadcrumbs leading to an inevitable conclusion. Vanessa Hartford. Vanessa from the Hartford Industries deal. Vanessa who sits on the acquisition committee. Vanessa whose father owns half the shipping ports on the East Coast. Vanessa who'd looked Lexi up and down at last month's Silvercrest Gala and asked with a smile like cut glass whether she was Marcus's assistant. "Look, Lexi." Marcus clasped his hands on the white tablecloth. It was his closing the deal pose, the one he used on reluctant investors. "We need to talk about the trajectory of things." Trajectory. Lexi took a sip of water, the crystal glass cool against her palm. She'd heard him use that word a dozen times in the past month. The trajectory of the Hartford merger. The trajectory of his career. The trajectory of his life. Never our trajectory. Always his. "I'm listening." Marcus leaned back. For a moment, just a flash, she saw relief in his eyes. He'd expected resistance. He'd prepared for tears, for pleading, for the messy, emotional scene that would let him feel like the villain and the victim all at once. "You know how much pressure I'm under right now. The Hartford Industries merger is massive. Biggest deal Silvercrest's ever touched. It requires a certain image, a certain availability." "And I'm not available?" Marcus sighed. He had the grace to look almost apologetic. "It's not about availability, Lexi. It's about fit. I'm moving into circles that are, let's be honest, a bit above your comfort zone." Above your comfort zone. The words hung in the air between them like smoke. Lexi thought about the private investigator's report sitting in her real apartment, the one Marcus didn't know existed. The one in the Dakota building on Central Park West, where the doorman called her Miss Sinclair and the concierge knew her grandfather's name. She thought about the $739,000 she'd funneled into Marcus's life over 5 years. The anonymous guarantor who'd co-signed his apartment lease when his credit was too poor. The shell company that had paid off his Penn student loans. The insurance settlement that had covered his emergency appendectomy. The tailor who'd given him incredible discounts on Brioni suits because she'd been paying the difference. Marcus saw a mousy librarian in a beige dress from anthropology. He had no idea he was looking at the sole heir to a $900 billion empire. "Vanessa, this is about Vanessa Hartford." Marcus had the decency to flush. She understands the world I'm building. Her father is the CEO. She grew up in this. He gestured vaguely at her, at the simple cream dress she wore, at the absence of jewelry that would have marked her as anything other than ordinary. "You're great, Lexi. You really are. But my world is changing. I need someone who can move in these circles without looking overwhelmed." Lexi didn't blink. She remembered the gala. She remembered standing quietly by the bar while Marcus ignored her for 3 hours to laugh at Vanessa's jokes. She remembered Vanessa looking her up and down, sneering at her off-rack shoes, asking if she was the help. "So what are you saying, Marcus?" "I think we need to separate." He exhaled, looking relieved that she was making it easy. "I've already spoken to the landlord at our apartment. I'll keep the lease. I found a nice studio for you in Queens. I'll pay the first 6 months. It's the least I can do." He slid a manila envelope across the white tablecloth. The movement was practiced, rehearsed. "There's a check inside, and a non-disclosure agreement, just standard stuff. Since I work in high finance now, I can't have ex-girlfriends talking about my private life. It could spook investors." Lexi looked at the envelope. Then she looked at Marcus. She saw the boy she'd nursed through the flu 3 years ago, staying up for 72 hours straight while he shivered with fever. She saw the man whose student loans she had quietly paid off using savings she claimed were from an inheritance. She saw someone who believed with every fiber of his being that he had outgrown her. He expected a scene. He had prepared for a drink to be thrown. He had his speech ready about how she was being hysterical, how this proved she wasn't cut out for his world. Lexi reached out and took the envelope. She didn't open it. She slipped it into her canvas tote bag, the one with fraying straps that Marcus always said she should replace. "Okay." Marcus blinked. "Okay. I understand. The trajectory has changed." "Right. Exactly." Marcus looked confused, his script useless. "So you're not angry?" "Marcus." Lexi stood up. She smoothed her dress, the fabric cheap polyester that had cost $38 on sale. "You are exactly the man I always knew you could become." She didn't wait for the check. She didn't ask for the studio apartment key. She turned and walked out of the dining room of Le Bernardin, her canvas tote bag over her shoulder, her flat shoes silent on the polished floor. Marcus watched her go. A smirk slowly formed on his face. "Easier than I thought. She knows her place." He pulled out his phone and texted Vanessa, "Done. She's gone. Meet me at the Pierre." He had no idea that the woman walking out of the restaurant had just triggered a sequence of events that would dismantle his entire reality. The apartment in Tribeca was technically Marcus's. His name was on the lease. He paid the rent, or thought he did. For the first 3 years, when he was an unpaid intern, the rent had mysteriously been paid by an anonymous guarantor he assumed was a distant uncle doing him a favor. Lexi entered the code. 987, his birth year, narcissist to the end. The space was cold, modern, filled with chrome and leather furniture. Marcus felt signaled success. Lexi moved through the rooms with the efficiency of a forensic cleaner. She didn't take the television. She didn't take the blender. She didn't take the clothes he had bought her, the flashy, logo-heavy items he insisted she wear to look the part. She left the Gucci belt. She left the Louis Vuitton bag she hated because the monogram was too loud and fake. She walked into the closet and pulled a single battered leather trunk from the very back, hidden behind his rows of Brooks Brothers suits. It was a Goyard trunk, vintage 1930s. If Marcus knew anything about actual luxury, he would have known that this single trunk was worth more than his car. But Marcus only knew brands he saw in rap videos or GQ ads. He didn't know old money. Lexi opened it. Inside were the things she had hidden. A passport in the name Alexandra Sinclair. A Patek Philippe Calatrava watch engraved, "To Lexi 18th birthday, love grandfather." A black American Express Centurion card, the real one made of titanium, not the platinum one Marcus bragged about carrying. She packed her real clothes, not the polyester blends Marcus thought she wore. Loro Piana cashmere sweaters in neutral tones, Brunello Cucinelli wool trousers, things that whispered wealth rather than screamed it. She worked in silence. The apartment hummed with the sound of the Sub-Zero fridge, the only noise in the space that had never really been a home. She stripped the bed. She placed the key to the apartment on the kitchen counter. Beside it, she placed the manila envelope he had given her at dinner. She didn't tear up the check. She didn't even look at the amount. She simply wrote 3 words on the front of the envelope in her elegant cursive, "Keep the change." She pulled out her phone. An old iPhone 11 with a cracked screen, another part of the disguise. She powered it off and left it on the counter, GPS still active. From the bottom of the Goyard trunk she pulled out a Vertu satellite phone, encrypted, the kind of device that costs more than most people's monthly rent. She dialed a number that had been saved in her memory since she was a child. One ring. "Operations." A crisp voice answered, precise and familiar. It was Richard. "It's Alexandra." Her voice changed. The softness, the hesitation of the mouse Marcus knew evaporated. In its place was steel. "I'm ready for extraction." "Miss Sinclair." Richard sounded relieved. "It's been a long time. Your grandfather would be proud you completed the experiment." "The experiment is over, Richard. He failed." "I see. Location." "Tribeca. I need pickup in 15 minutes." "Understood." "Destination." Lexi looked around the apartment one last time. She looked at the framed photo of her and Marcus on the mantelpiece taken 3 years ago in Central Park. He was looking at the camera. She was looking at him. "Manhattan, 157 West 57th. I want to be home." "Very good. And Miss Sinclair?" "Yes." "Shall we prep the G700 or the Gulfstream?" "The G700. And Richard?" "Ma'am." "Make sure the tail number is visible when we leave Teterboro. I have a feeling I might be followed." It was a gamble, but she knew Marcus. He was possessive. Even though he had discarded her the moment he realized she hadn't gone to the studio in Queens, the moment he realized his mouse was off the grid, he would track her. He used the Find My Friends app religiously to monitor her location. She left the old phone on tracking active. Bait. Lexi took the elevator down to the service entrance. A blacked-out Mercedes-Maybach GLS 600 was waiting. Not an Uber, not a Lyft. The driver, a man the size of a vending machine, stepped out and opened the door. "Miss Sinclair?" "Evening, Rocco." As the heavy door closed, sealing her in a cocoon of soundproofed leather and ambient lighting, Lexi exhaled. For 5 years she had played the role of Alexandra Hayes, the orphan from Ohio, with a quiet life and simple needs. She had wanted to be loved for herself, not her name, not her billions. She had found her answer. She wasn't loved. She was used. Teterboro, Rocco. And don't spare the gas. Back in the apartment, Marcus's phone buzzed. He was in the backseat of a taxi with Vanessa laughing as she critiqued his tie. He looked at the notification. Alexandra Hayes has stopped sharing location. He frowned. That's weird. "What is it, babe?" Vanessa traced his jawline with one manicured nail. "My ex. She turned off her location. She's supposed to be going to Queens." He opened the app. The last ping wasn't Queens. It was Teterboro. Teterboro. Marcus laughed nervously. Why would she be going to the private airport? "Maybe she took the wrong bus," Vanessa teased. "Maybe she's stalking you. Maybe she thinks you're flying out." Marcus's ego flared. "She's crazy. She's probably going to try to make a scene at the fence. Driver change of plans. Take us to Teterboro. I need to handle this before she embarrasses me." "Marcus, seriously?" Vanessa sighed. "It'll take 20 minutes. I want to make sure she knows it's really over. Plus," he smirked, "I want to see the look on her face when she sees I'm with you." The taxi swerved toward the Holland Tunnel. Marcus thought he was chasing a desperate ex-girlfriend. He didn't know he was chasing a ghost. The ride to Teterboro was a masterclass in tension. The driver kept his eyes on the road while Vanessa complained about the smell of the upholstery. Marcus, however, was glued to his phone. He refreshed Instagram. Nothing. Facebook. Nothing. LinkedIn showed her profile, but it was sparse, generic, the kind of profile someone maintains because they have to, not because they use it. "Marcus, this is ridiculous." Vanessa scrolled through her own phone. "We're chasing a girl who buys her clothes at Target to a private airport. Do you know how stupid we're going to look? Security is going to laugh at us." "She's up to something. She took the check. She took the NDA. Why is she here? I bet she's trying to catch a glimpse of some celebrity. Maybe she's waiting outside the terminal to harass someone. I need to get that check back before she does something to embarrass me. They arrived at the entrance of Meridian Teterboro, one of the most exclusive fixed-base operators on the airfield. The parking lot was filled with Range Rovers, Porsche Cayennes, and S-Class Mercedes. The taxi looked like a rusted tin can among heavy iron. Marcus jumped out before the car fully stopped marching toward the glass doors with Vanessa trailing behind, struggling in her heels. Inside the lobby smelled of expensive leather and freshly brewed espresso. It was quiet, the kind of quiet that money buys. A receptionist with perfect posture and a headset looked up as Marcus burst in. "Sir, I'm looking for a woman." Marcus leaned over the high marble counter, short brown hair dragging a beat-up suitcase. She would have just walked in here, maybe looking lost. The receptionist didn't blink. "Sir, we value the privacy of our clients. Unless you are a scheduled passenger, I'm going to have to ask you to wait outside." "I'm not a passenger. I'm a junior partner at Silvercrest Capital." Marcus flashed his business card as if it were a badge. "And the woman I'm looking for is having a mental health crisis. She's my former assistant. I'm here to help her." Vanessa rolled her eyes from the doorway. "God." Marcus let it go. The receptionist glanced at the computer screen, then back at Marcus. A tiny, almost imperceptible smile touched her lips. "I see. Well, the only passengers currently departing are boarding at Hangar 7. You can view the tarmac from the side gate, but you cannot go out there. TSA regulations." "Fine." Marcus grabbed Vanessa's hand. "Come on." They ran around the side of the building to the chain-link fence that separated the public area from the operational tarmac. The wind whipped across the flat concrete, carrying the sharp chemical scent of Jet A fuel. "There," Marcus pointed, his finger trembling. About 100 yards away, under the harsh glare of floodlights, sat a beast of a machine. It wasn't a small Cessna or a Learjet. It was a Gulfstream G700, a $75 million ultra-long-range business jet, sleek white with a midnight blue stripe running down the fuselage. The tail number, November Sierra India, November. Charlie was painted in gold leaf. The engines were already spooling up a high-pitched whine that vibrated in Marcus's chest. "That's a big plane." Vanessa's voice was hushed. That's billionaire territory, Marcus. She's probably a flight attendant." Marcus laughed, but it came out strangled. "Yeah, that's it. She never told me, but she must have gotten a job as a stewardess. That's why she's here." Then a black Mercedes Maybach rolled onto the tarmac, bypassing security checkpoints entirely. It pulled right up to the red carpet that had been rolled out to the jet's air stairs. The driver got out. The giant man, Rocco. He opened the back door. Lexi stepped out. From 100 yards away, Marcus watched. He saw her silhouette against the hangar lights. She wasn't wearing a flight attendant uniform. She was wearing a Burberry trench coat that flowed in the wind and sunglasses at night, and she carried a Hermes Birkin bag, not the knockoff LV tote. Rocco bowed his head. He didn't hand her a tray of drinks to load onto the aircraft. He handed her a phone and took her bag, handling it like it contained the crown jewels. "Wait." Marcus's voice was a whisper. "Why is the driver bowing?" Lexi paused at the bottom of the stairs. She turned. Just for a second. She looked toward the fence. It was impossible for her to see him in the dark through the chain link, but Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. She didn't wave. She didn't cry. She turned back, grabbed the handrail, and ascended the stairs with a grace he had never seen in their 5 years together. "She's boarding." Vanessa sounded stunned. "She's the passenger, Marcus. She's the only passenger." "No." Marcus shook his head. "No, that's impossible. She uses coupons. She buys generic cereal. She fixed my socks with a sewing kit because we couldn't afford new ones." The cabin door of the G700 sealed shut with a hydraulic thud that echoed across the tarmac. The stairs retracted. The massive Rolls-Royce Pearl engines roared to life, the sound escalating from a whine to a thunderous growl. The jet taxied smoothly, turning its tail toward the fence where Marcus stood. "Cover your eyes!" Vanessa shrieked as the wash hit them. A blast of hot air and kerosene slammed into Marcus, blowing his tie over his shoulder and forcing him to grab the fence to stay upright. It was a physical slap. He watched as the jet accelerated down the runway, lifted off effortlessly, banking sharply to the east, climbing toward the stratosphere. Marcus stood in the exhaust fumes of the woman he had just erased from his life. He looked at the empty tarmac. He looked at the mental image of the check $8,000 that he had given her like she was a dismissed employee. "Who the hell was that?" Vanessa's voice trembled. Marcus stared at the red navigation lights disappearing into the clouds. "I don't know. I really don't know." Morning came too soon. Marcus hadn't slept. He sat in the Pierre Hotel suite, Vanessa's suite paid for by her father, staring at his laptop screen as the first gray light of dawn crept through the curtains. He typed into Google, "Alexandra Hayes, New York." Nothing relevant. A few LinkedIn profiles, none of them her. A Facebook page for someone in Albany. An Instagram account that was private. He tried Alexandra Miller. That had been her supposed maiden name, the one she'd used when they first met. Nothing. Reverse image search. He uploaded photos from his phone, pictures of them together at Central Park, at the Silvercrest holiday party, at a bodega near their apartment. The algorithm spun and spun. No results found. It was as if she had never existed. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Marcus answered, his voice hoarse. "Hello." "Mr. Blake, this is Richard Pemberton representing Miss Sinclair." Marcus's stomach dropped. "Who?" "Alexandra Sinclair. The woman you knew as Alexandra Hayes." The name hit him like cold water. What? "I'm calling to inform you that the lease on your Tribeca residence was guaranteed by Sinclair Trust Properties. You have 30 days to vacate." "Wait, what I pay that rent?" "You pay $3,200 per month, Mr. Blake. The actual rent is $5,200. The difference has been subsidized by the trust for the past 5 years. That subsidy is now terminated." Marcus couldn't breathe. "Who the fuck is Sinclair Trust?" "Have a pleasant day, Mr. Blake." The line went dead. Marcus's hands shook as he typed Sinclair Trust. The first result was Forbes. He clicked. The headline made his vision blur. "Archibald Sinclair dies at 89, railroad titan leaves $900 billion empire to granddaughter." The article was from 2 years ago. Marcus scrolled, his heart pounding. Archibald Sinclair, the reclusive patriarch of Sinclair Global Trust, died peacefully at his estate in Connecticut. His sole heir, Alexandra Sinclair, 26, inherits control of one of America's oldest and largest fortunes. The Sinclair family wealth dates to 1870s railroads expanded into steel shipping, real estate, and private equity. Current assets estimated at $900 billion across 47 states and international holdings. Alexandra Sinclair graduated summa cum laude from Princeton in 2019 and earned her MBA from Wharton in 2021. She sits on the boards of the Metropolitan Museum, New York Public Library, and Memorial Sloan Kettering. In an unusual move, Archibald's will stipulated that Alexandra must live among ordinary Americans for no less than 5 years, unknown and unassisted, to understand the value of character over capital before assuming control of the trust. There was a photo. Lexi, no Alexandra, at the Met Gala in 2019. She wore an $80,000 Oscar de la Renta gown. Diamonds glittered at her throat. She was laughing, radiant, surrounded by celebrities and power brokers. She looked like herself, but not the self Marcus knew. He ran to the bathroom and vomited. Vanessa knocked on the door. "Babe, what's wrong?" Marcus couldn't answer. He just stared at his reflection in the mirror, pale, sweating eyes bloodshot. The woman he had thrown away like garbage was worth $900 billion, and he had given her $8,000 as severance. The courier arrived at 2 in the afternoon. Marcus was sitting in the Pierre lobby, unable to afford another night in Vanessa's room, trying to figure out his next move. The man in the dark suit handed him a thick envelope. "Marcus Blake." "Yeah." "Sign here." The envelope bore the letterhead of Sullivan and Cromwell, one of the most feared law firms on the planet. Marcus's hands trembled as he opened it. Inside was a single letter and a comprehensive spreadsheet. He read, Sullivan and Cromwell, LLP-RE, Itemized Accounting. Blake/Sinclair Relationship. Dear Mr. Blake, we represent Alexandra Sinclair in response to your anticipated inquiries regarding the financial arrangements of your cohabitation from September 2019 through November 2024. Marcus's eyes moved to the spreadsheet. Itemized contributions by Marcus Blake. Groceries and household supplies. 60 months, $18,400. Utilities, 50% share, $9,300. Vacation expenses, Bahamas, 2022, $4,500. Miscellaneous gifts, $8,200. Total contributed by Marcus Blake, $40,400. By Alexandra Sinclair. Tribeca apartment rent differential. $2,000 per month for 60 months, $120,000. Security deposit and broker fee, 2019, $18,000. Student loan payoff. University of Pennsylvania. March 15, 2020, paid via Blue Heron LLC, $180,000. Medical expenses appendectomy, 2023, $31,000. Dental work, 2021, $8,400. Vehicle expenses. Audi A4. Lease 24 months, $18,000. Insurance subsidy, $12,000. Professional wardrobe, Brioni suits, $16,000. Tom Ford shoes, 6 pairs, $4,200. Accessories, $8,800. Rolex Daytona birthday gift, 2022, $28,000. Furniture and appliances. Tribeca apartment, $38,000. Emergency fund deposits to Chase account. March 2020, $15,000. August 2021, $20,000. January 2023, $25,000. Business proposal development. 3 presentations. Henderson pitch. 2022 estimated value, $50,000. Redstone acquisition. 2023 estimated value, $75,000. Hartford Industries financial model, 2024 estimated value, $125,000. Intellectual property theft. You presented Miss Sinclair's work as your own on 3 occasions constituting IP theft, valued at minimum $250,000 in consulting fees. Total contributed by Miss Sinclair, $1,001,400. Total contributed by Mr. Blake, $40,400. Balance. You owe Miss Sinclair $961,000. Settlement offer. Miss Sinclair will forgive this debt in exchange for 1. Your immediate silence regarding the relationship. 2. No contact attempts of any kind. 3. Compliance with the NDA you signed November 8, 2024. 4. No public statements or media interviews. Consequence of non-compliance. If you violate these terms, we will sue for full repayment of $961,000 plus 8% annual interest, pursue criminal charges for IP theft, file an SEC complaint regarding fraudulent business practices, and seek wage garnishment for 40 years if necessary. You have 72 hours to sign the attached agreement. Choose wisely. Margaret Chen's senior partner Marcus read the document 3 times. Each time the numbers grew more horrifying. He didn't support her. She supported him. Every win he celebrated: the Henderson deal, the Redstone acquisition, the Hartford pitch. She had made it happen. The apartment he bragged about living in, the car he drove, the suits he wore, the watch on his wrist, all her. He was a kept man, and he had thrown her away. Vanessa appeared beside him, reading over his shoulder. Her face went white. "Oh my God, Marcus, you were a sugar baby." Marcus couldn't speak. The words wouldn't come. Vanessa pulled out her phone, texting rapidly. Probably her father. Probably damage control. "I have to go." "Vanessa, wait." She didn't wait. She grabbed her purse and walked out of the Pierre lobby without looking back. Marcus sat alone on the velvet bench, surrounded by tourists, checking in bellhops, moving luggage, the hum of wealth and normalcy. His phone buzzed. Page 6 notification. The headline, Billionaire Heiress Tanks Private Equity Firm After Ex-Boyfriend's Breakup Backfires. He didn't open it. He already knew what it would say. Sunday was worse. Marcus tried everything. He called Lexi's old phone number. The number you have dialed is no longer in service. He emailed her old Gmail. Bounce back. Address not found. He went to the apartment address she'd given him years ago, the place he thought she lived before they moved in together. The landlord stared at him like he was crazy. Nobody by that name has ever lived here. But I dropped her off here dozens of times. Maybe she had you drop her at the wrong building. I don't know what to tell you. He tried the New York Public Library where she claimed to work. The head librarian frowned at her name. We've never had an employee named Alexandra Hayes. He checked the academic journals she said she edited. He realized standing in the research section that she had never given him specific names. He had never asked. Every detail of her life had been a lie, or rather everything she told him was designed to make him comfortable with his own assumptions. She could have said, I'm a billionaire heiress. I own half of Manhattan. This is a test. But she didn't, because she wanted to see if he would love her without the money. And he didn't. The moment he thought he could upgrade, he discarded her. At 6 p.m, Vanessa texted him. Don't contact me again. My father is pulling Hartford out of 3 other Silvercrest deals because of you. You're toxic. Lose my number. Marcus stared at the message. 2 women in 72 hours, both gone. But only one mattered, and he had lost her the moment he opened his mouth at Le Bernardin. He pulled up a photo on his phone. Central Park 3 years ago. Autumn leaves. Lexi was looking at him with pure love. He was looking at the camera, smiling oblivious. He never saw her. He only saw what she could do for him. And now she was gone. Marcus's phone buzzed again. His mother. He didn't answer. He couldn't explain this to her. He couldn't explain it to himself. He sat in the hotel room he could no longer afford, staring at the spreadsheet at the $961,000 he owed to a woman he had valued at $8,000. For the first time in his life, Marcus Blake understood the difference between price and worth. And he understood that he had just destroyed the most valuable thing he would ever have. Monday morning at Silvercrest Capital was usually a symphony of aggressive typing shouting into headsets and the clinking of espresso cups. But today the atmosphere in the glass-walled conference room on the 40th floor was grave. Marcus sat near the end of the mahogany table nursing a coffee he hadn't touched. He looked terrible. 72 hours without sleep. His suit was wrinkled no Lexi to press it with the steam iron she kept in the closet. The shirt collar had a faint stain from where he'd spilled bodega coffee on the subway. In 5 years he'd never taken the subway to work. He couldn't afford Uber anymore. Donovan Hayes, the senior partner, sat at the head of the table. 62 years old, silver hair, $15 million salary, and a reputation for making grown analysts cry. Today he looked nervous. He kept adjusting his Hermes tie and checking the video conferencing system like he expected it to explode. Marcus, focus. Donovan's voice was sharp. Sorry, sir, just allergies. Well, take a Claritin. We need to be sharp. The Hartford merger is on the line, but there's been a complication. The room went silent. 12 partners stopped pretending to read their briefing packets. The Hartford deal was everything. A $400 million acquisition that would cement Silvercrest's reputation as a major player. Without it, they were just another boutique firm drowning in a sea of Goldman and J.P. Morgan. What kind of complication? Vanessa sat across from Marcus, representing her father's interests. She hadn't looked at him once since entering the room. Donovan pulled up a slide on the projector. The Hartford Group isn't actually owned by the board. It's a subsidiary, controlled by a holding company. Owned by who? Marcus's voice came out smaller than he intended. Sinclair Global Trust. Donovan's voice dropped an octave. A murmur went through the room. Everyone in finance knew the name. Sinclair wasn't tech billionaire money. Sinclair was railroad money, steel money, the kind of wealth that predated income tax and survived the Great Depression by buying up half of New York for pennies on the dollar. "I thought the patriarch died last year." Vanessa's voice was tight. "He did." Control passed to his granddaughter. "She's been living in anonymity for the past 5 years, some grounding exercise her grandfather insisted on before she took the reins. Apparently she wanted to understand the value of a dollar." Donovan's tone suggested he found this quaint and ridiculous. Marcus's hands went numb. The coffee cup nearly slipped from his grip. "We have a meeting with her proxy today via video link to secure approval for the merger, but rumor is she might dial in herself. If she does, you all need to be on your best behavior. This woman controls assets worth more than the GDP of most countries. She is not to be trifled with." The screen at the head of the table flickered to life. The Silvercrest logo appeared, then dissolved into a connection screen. Marcus's chest tightened. "Please don't let it be her. Please." The video feed stabilized. Not Switzerland, not some European castle. The background showed floor-to-ceiling windows with a view that made Marcus's stomach lurch. Central Park, spread out like a green carpet 75 floors below. Beyond it, the Manhattan skyline stretched to the horizon, the Empire State Building, the Chrysler Building, thousands of buildings where millions of people worked. And somewhere down there in a glass tower on 6th Avenue was Silvercrest Capital. She'd been 15 blocks away this whole time. The office itself was breathtaking. Mahogany paneling that looked original, probably pulled from a Gilded Age mansion. American Impressionist paintings on the walls. A Child Hassam cityscape worth $20 million. A Mary Cassatt, mother and child, that belonged in a museum. At the head of the conference table sat Richard Pemberton. British accent, impeccable suit, the kind of man who'd spent 40 years managing people who owned countries. "Good morning, gentlemen and Ms. Hartford. I am Richard Pemberton, Senior Advisor to Sinclair Global Trust." Donovan's voice oozed charm. "Mr. Pemberton, what an honor. We're ready to present our strategy for the Hartford acquisition." "Yes, about that." Richard's smile didn't reach his eyes. "The trust has reviewed your proposal. Miss Sinclair has some reservations about the leadership culture at Silvercrest Capital." "Culture?" Donovan blinked. "We're a top-tier firm. We value integrity, hard work. Miss Sinclair values character. Mr. Hayes, she believes that how a man treats the so-called little people reveals how he will treat his shareholders." Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. His hands shook under the table. "She would like to speak directly to the junior partner leading this deal. Mr. Marcus Blake, is he present?" Every head in the room turned. Donovan beamed oblivious. "Yes, Marcus is our rising star. He's right here." "Excellent. One moment, please." Richard moved his laptop slightly, adjusting the camera angle. The door in the background opened. A woman walked into frame. White Armani power suit. Not beige. Not the soft cardigans and wrinkled cotton dresses Marcus knew. This was $8,000 of Italian wool cut to intimidate. Her hair was styled in a sleek French twist, not the messy bun she wore while cooking his dinner. Professional. Severe. The hair of someone who had a standing appointment at Frederick Fekkai and didn't blink at the $400 price tag. She wore a Cartier Panthère watch. Platinum. $45,000. Not the cheap Timex she used to check while timing his morning eggs. Pearl earrings. Simple, elegant. Each one worth more than his car. She sat at the head of the table like she'd been born there. Because she had. The room in New York went dead silent. "Good morning, gentlemen, and Ms. Hartford." Her voice was different. No softness, no hesitation. Crystal clear, amplified by high-definition audio. "My name is Alexandra Sinclair." Donovan looked from the screen to Marcus, confusion blooming into horror. You know Miss Sinclair?" Marcus's throat was sand. We used to know each other." "Used to." Alexandra's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "That's one way to phrase it. Mr. Blake and I cohabited for 5 years until last Friday when he explained that his trajectory had outgrown my—" "What was the phrase you used, Marcus?" She paused, letting the silence build. Comfort zone. Vanessa audibly gasped. Donovan looked like he was having a stroke. Marcus tried to speak. No words came. Mr. Hayes. Alexandra turned her attention to the senior partner. Your associate attempted to purchase my silence and my dignity with a check for $8,000 and a studio apartment in Queens. He informed me that to succeed in high finance, he needed a partner who fit the image. She leaned forward. The camera caught the cold precision in her eyes. I am currently reviewing the Hartford merger, and I have to say I'm struggling to see the value in a firm that employs men who can't recognize a diamond because they're too busy looking for glitter. Miss Sinclair, Donovan's voice cracked. I had no idea. This is a personal matter between you and business is personal, Mr. Hayes. The words cut like a scalpel. My grandfather taught me that you invest in people, not spreadsheets. And frankly, your rising star is a catastrophic investment. He lacks judgment. He lacks loyalty. And worst of all, he lacks taste. She picked up a document from the table. I'm rejecting the Hartford merger effective immediately. Wait. Donovan stood up. Miss Sinclair, that's $400 million in value creation. You can't just... I can, and I am. Furthermore, Sinclair Trust will be divesting all holdings from Silvercrest Capital. We currently manage $1.8 billion through your various funds. That capital will be transferred to Goldman Sachs by end of business Friday. The number landed like a bomb. $1.8 billion, 38% of Silvercrest's total assets under management. Donovan's face went from red to white. Miss Sinclair, please. We can discuss this. We had no knowledge of Marcus's personal... Then you should have known. Alexandra's voice was ice. Due diligence applies to employees, Mr. Hayes, not just acquisitions. She turned her gaze to Marcus. He felt pinned a butterfly under glass. Let me tell you what your rising star did. 3 years ago, he presented a financial model for the Henderson pitch. Sensitivity analysis, 3 scenarios, probability-weighted returns. Beautiful work. He won the deal. I wrote that model, Mr. Hayes. At 2 in the morning while Marcus slept because he'd procrastinated until the night before the deadline. He presented it as his work. That's intellectual property theft. Marcus wanted to disappear, to melt through the floor. 2 years ago, the Redstone acquisition. Marcus needed a term sheet comparison. I built it. He claimed it. Another theft. And 6 weeks ago, the Hartford deal. The financial model that convinced your board to pursue this merger, I created it. Marcus presented it to you as proof of his analytical capabilities. She held up a document. I have the original files. Metadata shows creation dates, edit logs, everything. Your star analyst is a fraud. Donovan turned to Marcus, veins bulging in his neck. The room felt airless. Miss Sinclair. Vanessa stood up, her voice desperate. For what it's worth, I had no idea about Marcus's history with you. My father and I are appalled by his behavior. Alexandra's expression didn't change. Are you Ms. Hartford? Yes, completely. How interesting. Because 3 weeks ago at the Silvercrest Holiday Gala, you asked me if I was Marcus's assistant. You looked at my dress, which cost $3,000, though you didn't know that, and you laughed. You said, and I quote, "It's so sweet when they try." Vanessa's face drained of color. That was just... You assessed my value based on appearance, Miss Hartford, just like Mr. Blake did. You're not appalled by his behavior. You're appalled that his poor judgment is now your liability. Alexandra stood. The camera followed her movement. She was elegant, controlled, every gesture deliberate. Gentlemen, Ms. Hartford, this meeting is concluded. Mr. Pemberton will handle the transition paperwork. I expect full compliance with the capital withdrawal timeline. Any delays will result in legal action. Marcus found his voice. It came out broken, desperate. Lexi, please, I made a mistake. I didn't know. You didn't know because you never asked. Her words were surgical. You assumed. You saw a quiet woman in simple clothes and you made a calculation. That calculation was wrong. That's not a mistake, Marcus. That's a character flaw. She picked up a piece of paper. The check. The $8,000 check he'd given her at Le Bernardin. She held it up to the camera. About this. She tore it in half. The sound was loud in the silent room. I never cashed it. But I did keep the change. The screen went black. 10 seconds of silence. Then Donovan erupted. Get out! The coffee mug flew across the room, shattering against the wall. Dark liquid splattered across the framed Bloomberg Best PE Firm award from last year. Get out of my building before I throw you out the goddamn window! Donovan's face was purple. Spittle flew from his mouth. You didn't just lose a girlfriend, you moron. You lost us everything. Hartford Sinclair, $1.8 billion in AUM. Marcus stood. His legs shook. He grabbed his briefcase, the Toomey bag Lexi had given him for his 30th birthday, the one she said came from a sale but probably cost $2,000. The other partners wouldn't look at him. They stared at their laptops, their legal pads, the view of 6th Avenue anywhere but at the man who'd just torpedoed their bonuses. Vanessa was on her phone typing furiously, probably texting her father, I didn't know, Daddy. I swear. Don't blame me. 2 security guards appeared at the door. Mr. Blake, please come with us. The walk through Silvercrest's glass offices was endless. 100 employees watched. They knew. News traveled at the speed of light in finance. Someone in the conference room had already sent a Slack message. The guy who dumped a billionaire. He's the reason we're losing Hartford. Whispers followed him like ghosts. That's him. Can't believe he was that stupid. My Q4 bonus is gone because of this asshole. The elevator doors closed. Marcus stood between 2 security guards, staring at his reflection in the polished brass. He looked old, haggard. The rising star had fallen, and the impact was going to leave a crater. The lobby was marble and chrome designed to impress clients. The security guards handed him a cardboard box. Inside a stapler, a photo frame, his gym bag, the shattered pieces of his Employee of the Month mug. Your building access has been revoked. Please surrender your key card. Marcus fumbled with his wallet. The card, black with silver lettering, the one that had made him feel important, dropped into the guard's hand. Good luck, sir. The automatic doors opened. 6th Avenue, Monday morning, 11 o'clock. The sidewalk was crowded with people grabbing early lunch, running errands, living normal lives. Marcus stood there holding his cardboard box. A junior partner at Silvercrest Capital on Friday. Unemployed on Monday. He'd destroyed his career in 5 minutes at a French restaurant, and it had taken Alexandra 6 days to return the favor. Vanessa emerged from the building 10 minutes later. Marcus was still standing there, unable to move. She walked past him like he was invisible. Vanessa, wait. She stopped, removed her sunglasses. Her eyes were ice. There is no we, Marcus. My father just pulled Hartford out of 3 other Silvercrest deals, not just the merger. 3 active deals worth $600 million in combined revenue. He's furious. Says the Sinclair situation makes us look like we don't vet our partners. Do you know what that means? I was supposed to take over the family business in 5 years. Now Daddy says I'm tainted by association, and he's promoting my cousin instead. Marcus opened his mouth. Nothing came out. I date winners, Marcus. You're not a winner. You're a cautionary tale they'll teach at Wharton. The idiot who dumped a billionaire. An Uber Black pulled up. She got in without looking back. Marcus watched the car disappear into Manhattan traffic. 2 women in 4 days. Both gone. Both watching him shrink in their rearview mirrors. His phone buzzed. Page 6 notification. Headline: Billionaire heiress tanks. Private equity firm, after ex-boyfriend's breakup, backfires spectacularly. He didn't read it. He didn't need to. He already knew every humiliating detail. The calls started Tuesday morning. Marcus had spent Monday night in a hostel in Chinatown, $38 a night, shared bathroom, the smell of cigarettes and instant noodles seeping through the walls. His credit cards were maxed. His checking account had $412. The Tribeca apartment was gone. The eviction notice had been slipped under the door. 30 days. But he couldn't afford 30 days of rent anywhere in Manhattan. He'd moved to Queens, not the studio he'd rented for Lexi. He couldn't afford that now. A different studio, smaller. 4110 Queens Boulevard, 400 square feet, $1,800 a month. It was all he could manage. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd tried to exile her to Queens. Now he was exiling himself. His phone rang, a New York number he didn't recognize. Marcus Blake. Yes. This is Jennifer Wu from Caldwell Partners. I'm a headhunter specializing in private equity placements. I saw the news about Silvercrest. I wanted to reach out, see if you're open to opportunities. Hope surged in Marcus's chest. Yes, absolutely. What do you have? Well, here's the thing. The Sinclair situation is problematic. Most firms in New York won't touch you right now. Sinclair does business with everyone: Goldman, Morgan Stanley, Blackstone. Nobody wants to upset her. The hope died. So why are you calling? I have some opportunities in Charlotte, Dallas, maybe Phoenix. Smaller markets where the Sinclair name doesn't carry as much weight. Charlotte. Marcus's voice was hollow. Look, I'll be straight with you. You're radioactive in Manhattan. The story is everywhere. Junior analyst dumps billionaire girlfriend, costs his firm $400 million and 38% of their AUM. That's a career killer in this market. My advice, take 6 months. Let this blow over. Move to a secondary market. Rebuild your reputation. You're young. You can recover. But not here. Not now. She hung up. Marcus stared at his phone. The calls continued. Goldman, J.P. Morgan, Evercore, smaller boutique firms. The conversations were identical. Marcus, you're talented, but the Sinclair situation is a non-starter. We do too much business with the trust. We can't risk it. Have you considered a different industry? Maybe tech corporate development? By Wednesday, he'd stopped answering. There was no point. Thursday morning, another courier. Marcus was sitting in his Queens studio. The walls were beige, the floor was laminate, pretending to be wood. The window looked out at a brick wall when the knock came. He opened the door. The courier handed him an envelope. Debevoise and Plimpton, LLP. Even more prestigious than Sullivan and Cromwell. Even more expensive. Alexandra was upgrading her legal artillery. Marcus opened the letter. R.E. Counterclaim, Blake versus Sinclair. Dear Mr. Blake, we represent Alexandra Sinclair in response to your anticipated inquiries and potential legal action. Be advised, any lawsuit you file will be met with immediate counteraction for the following: 1. Defamation, $10 million. Your statements to Page 6 and Daily Mail have falsely portrayed Miss Sinclair as vindictive. Quotes include, "She destroyed my career out of spite," and "I had no idea she was capable of this kind of revenge." Miss Sinclair took no action against you personally. She made a business decision to divest from a firm that employs individuals who engage in intellectual property theft and fraudulent representation. That is her fiduciary right as an investor. 2. Breach of NDA, $5 million. You signed a non-disclosure agreement on November 8, 2024. You violated it by discussing the relationship with media outlets. 3. Debt recovery, $961,000 plus 8% annual interest over 7 months equals $1,015,000. Total potential liability, $26,015,000. We will waive this claim if you withdraw any contemplated lawsuit immediately. Issue a public apology using our provided statement. Accept a permanent restraining order 500 yards from any Sinclair property or person, lifetime enforcement. You have 72 hours to comply. Failure will result in wage garnishment for the next 40 years. Choose wisely. Margaret Chen, Senior Partner. Attached was the apology statement. Marcus read it, his hands numb. I apologize to Alexandra Sinclair for any mischaracterization of our relationship. She was nothing but generous during our time together. I wish her well. He signed everything. The withdrawal, the apology, the restraining order. He posted the apology to his Instagram, the account he deactivated but had to reopen for this humiliation. 23 comments in 5 minutes. LMAOOOO, imagine fumbling a billionaire this hard. Bro, you are cooked. This is the funniest thing I've ever seen. He deactivated again. 6 months passed. Marcus found work at an Amazon fulfillment center in New Jersey. $18 an hour. Overnight shift, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Walking 15 miles per shift, scanning packages, loading conveyor belts. His co-workers didn't know who he was. He went by Mark now. Mark Blake. No mention of Silvercrest. No mention of Wharton or Penn. Just another guy trying to make rent. Jesus worked the same shift. 45 from Ecuador, father of 3. He'd been at the warehouse for 8 years. They took breaks together. 5:30 in the morning, sitting in the break room with bitter coffee and stale vending machine pastries. Mark, you okay? You look tired. Yeah, just thinking. Don't think too much, man. Just do the work. Go home. Sleep. That's life. Marcus. Mark stared at the Formica table. Is it enough, just working? Jesus shrugged. Enough for what I feed my kids. I sleep okay. I got friends here. I go to my daughter's soccer games on Sunday. That's enough for me. Marcus thought about the life he'd wanted. The penthouse, the sports car, the corner office with views of Central Park. He'd wanted to be someone important, someone people noticed. Now he was invisible. A scanner gun and a safety vest. Employee 84721. Yeah, Marcus's voice was quiet. Maybe you're right. But he didn't believe it. This wasn't enough. This was purgatory, and he'd built it himself brick by brick with every choice he'd made at Le Bernardin. The news hit in May. Marcus was scrolling through his phone during lunch break, old habit checking the world he used to be part of when he saw the headline. Business Insider, Silvercrest Capital files for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. He clicked. Silvercrest Capital, once a rising star in private equity with $4.7 billion in assets under management, filed for bankruptcy protection today after a catastrophic 6-month decline. The collapse began in November when the firm lost 38% of its AUM, $1.8 billion, after Sinclair Global Trust divested all holdings. The trust cited concerns about leadership culture and intellectual property practices. The departure triggered a cascade. Other institutional investors, spooked by Sinclair's exit, began pulling capital. By January, Silvercrest had lost 60% of its client base. The failed Hartford Industries merger, a $400 million deal vetoed by Sinclair Trust, left the firm unable to generate new revenue streams. Partner compensation was cut by 70% in March. Staff layoffs began in April. As of today, Silvercrest employs 14 people, down from 120 in November. Remaining assets will be liquidated to pay creditors. Former senior partner Donovan Hayes could not be reached for comment. Marcus set down his phone. His hands were steady. He felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not grief. Just emptiness. He'd killed Silvercrest Capital, not on purpose, not directly. But the chain of causation was clear. One breakup dinner, one woman underestimated, one career destroyed, and he'd taken 100+ people down with him. The Metropolitan Charity Gala was the social event of the spring, $50,000 per ticket, 1,200 guests. Theme Gilded Age reimagined. Marcus wasn't attending, he was working it. Prestige valet services, $15 an hour plus tips. 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. shift. Parking cars for the people who used to be his colleagues. The shift manager, a wiry man named Rodriguez who chain-smoked Marlboros and had no patience for mistakes, gathered the crew at 5:45. Listen up. Tonight is serious money. Fortune 500 CEOs, hedge fund managers, old money families. You scratch anything, you're fired and sued. Keep your heads down. Smile. Don't make eye contact unless they speak to you first. Rodriguez looked directly at Marcus. Blake, you got that? No eye contact. To them, you're furniture. Yes, sir. Good. Sinclair convoy is expected at 8:30. That's the big one. They own half the city. You so much as breathe wrong near those cars, I'll personally throw you into traffic." Marcus's stomach dropped. He'd known she might be here. It was a charity gala. She sat on half the boards in Manhattan, but knowing and facing it were different animals. The arrivals began at 7. Marcus parked a Bentley Continental GT, a Lamborghini Aventador, a Porsche Taycan Turbo S. At 7:45, a familiar car pulled up. Marcus's heart stopped. A silver Porsche Taycan. Out stepped Trevor Chen, former colleague from Silvercrest, now at Goldman Sachs. Trevor handed Marcus the keys without looking at him. Didn't recognize him. The valet uniform, the cap pulled low, the 40 pounds Marcus had lost from stress and warehouse work, it was a perfect disguise. "Have a good evening, sir." Trevor grunted and walked toward the entrance. He'd stepped over Marcus like a puddle. To Trevor, valets were furniture, invisible, interchangeable. Marcus had been Trevor 2 years ago. Now he was the help. 8:25. Rodriguez grabbed Marcus's arm. "Heads up. Sinclair convoy, 3 SUVs and a Phantom. Do not fuck this up." Marcus's mouth went dry. "Got it." The convoy appeared. 3 black Cadillac Escalades with tinted windows. Behind them, a Rolls-Royce Phantom 8. Extended wheelbase, custom midnight blue with a platinum pinstripe. The Spirit of Ecstasy hood ornament caught the light like a tiny silver angel. License plate SINC-1. The paparazzi went insane. 30 photographers surged against the barriers, cameras flashing like a lightning storm. "Alexandra, over here. Who's your date?" Security exited the Escalades first. 6 men in tactical vests, earpieces moving with military precision. They formed a perimeter holding back the press. The Phantom's rear door opened. First the shoes. Christian Louboutin heels, crystal-embellished, each crystal placed by hand. $4,500 for shoes that would be worn once. Then the dress. Oscar de la Renta. Custom silver gown that moved like liquid mercury. Hand-beaded with 10,000 Swarovski crystals. $120,000. 400 hours of labor. Then Alexandra stepped out. She was radiant. Hair in old Hollywood waves that had taken a stylist 3 hours to perfect. Van Cleef and Arpels diamond necklace, an estate piece that had belonged to her great-grandmother Millicent Sinclair, the American heiress who'd dined with Vanderbilts and Astors. $2.4 million resting against her collarbone. But it wasn't the clothes or the jewelry, it was her. She glowed with confidence, with power, with the absolute certainty of someone who knew exactly who she was. This was Alexandra Sinclair. No more hiding, no more beige cardigans. This was a woman who owned her name, her legacy, her place in the world. The passenger door opened. A man stepped out. Tall, 6'2", salt and pepper hair that looked distinguished rather than old. Tom Ford tuxedo cut to perfection. Tanned skin, calloused hands visible even from a distance, the hands of someone who still worked despite the wealth. Dr. James Morrison. Marcus had Googled him during a break last week. Chief of Trauma Surgery at Massachusetts General Hospital, MacArthur Fellowship recipient, born on a ranch in Montana, worked his way through Harvard Medical School, the opposite of Marcus in every way that mattered. James offered Alexandra his arm. She took it, smiling up at him. They walked the red carpet together. The paparazzi shouted questions. Alexandra ignored them, leaning in to hear something James whispered. She laughed. Real laughter, not the polite smile she used to give Marcus's unfunny jokes. "After you, darlin'." James's voice carried a faint Montana drawl. Alexandra laughed again. "You can take the man out of Montana, but you can't take Montana out of the man." They moved toward the entrance. Rodriguez shoved Marcus forward. "Blake, get the Phantom, move." Marcus walked toward the Rolls-Royce. His legs felt disconnected from his body. He passed within 3 feet of Alexandra. She was posing for photographers with James, his hand on the small of her back, both of them looking like they belonged on the cover of Town and Country. Marcus grabbed the door handle, started to move around to the driver's side. Alexandra turned to adjust her gown's train. Her eyes swept across the valet area. They landed on Marcus. Recognition flickered. Half a second. Her expression didn't change. No anger, no satisfaction, no acknowledgement of history or pain or 5 years of shared life. Just nothing. Like looking at a lamppost, like looking at air. James noticed her pause. "Alexandra, everything all right?" She blinked, turned back to him. The warm smile returned instantly. "Yes, darling. Just thought I saw someone I used to know." A pause. "But I was mistaken." They walked up the steps into the gala. The doors closed behind them. The photographers dispersed, chasing the next arrival. Marcus stood frozen, the Phantom's door handle cold under his palm. If she'd yelled at him, it would have meant she still cared. If she'd mocked him, it would have meant he still had power over her emotions. But she didn't. She looked at him and saw nothing. He wasn't an ex-boyfriend. He wasn't an enemy. He was just the help. Invisible. Irrelevant. He'd told her she wasn't good enough for his trajectory. Now he was parking her car. Rodriguez screamed over the radio, "Blake, move the car now!" Marcus got into the driver's seat. The interior smelled like jasmine, her signature scent. Essential oil diffuser built into the climate control. The leather was Phantom Rose hand-stitched, $50,000 just for the hides. The headliner above him showed fiber optic stars. 1,300 points of light creating a night sky. The Starlight package. A $6,000 option. Marcus started the engine. It purred. Rolls-Royce engines didn't roar. They whispered power. He drove to the VIP section of the parking garage. Level P3. Parked the Phantom between 2 other Rolls-Royces, a Ghost and a Cullinan. The Sinclair fleet. He turned off the engine. Silence swallowed him. He sat there. 5 minutes. 10. 15. His hands gripped the steering wheel. Lamb's wool wrapped around the rim. Every detail of this car was designed for comfort, for luxury, for people who would never know what it felt like to count pennies for subway fare. The registration was in the glove compartment. He opened it, knowing he shouldn't, unable to stop himself. Owner Sinclair Global Trust. Vehicle 47. 47. She had 46 other cars. This $75 million jet on wheels was just another tool in her arsenal. He used to think he was generous for buying her $20 bodega flowers. Marcus closed his eyes. The memories came unbidden. 3 years ago. Central Park. Autumn. They'd walked for hours, her hand in his, talking about nothing and everything. She'd laughed at his jokes. She'd listened to his dreams about making partner, about building wealth, about becoming someone important. She'd never told him she was already someone important. She'd just loved him. And he'd thrown that away for what? For Vanessa Hartford, who'd dumped him the moment he became worthless, for a trajectory that had led straight down into warehouse shifts and valet work. Marcus opened his eyes, looked at himself in the rearview mirror. Hollow cheeks, gray hair at his temples. He was 32 and looked 45, eyes that had seen too much and understood too little. He got out of the car, closed the door. The hydraulic thunk was solid final, the sound of a door closing on everything he'd wanted to be. He walked back toward the garage exit, took off his valet vest, dropped it in a trash can. He didn't clock out, didn't tell Rodriguez, just walked, out onto 5th Avenue, 9:15 on a warm May night. The sounds of the gala drifted from the museum orchestra music, laughter, the clinking of champagne glasses. Alexandra was in there, dancing with James, surrounded by people who saw her for who she really was. Marcus was out here, alone. He walked south. No destination, just movement. Away from the gala, away from the Phantom, away from the ghost of everything he'd destroyed. He passed a storefront window, caught his reflection next to a poster advertising tonight's gala. Alexandra's face larger than life, radiant in diamonds. His face haggard and worn in a rumpled uniform, side by side, the distance between them infinite. He kept walking. Somewhere in the back of his mind a voice whispered, "She didn't say a word when she left." but those jet engines screamed. And now so does the silence. Marcus walked until his feet hurt, until the city blurred around him, until he couldn't tell if the wetness on his face was sweat or tears, or the mist from a late spring rain that had started to fall. He ended up in Queens, on his street, in front of his building, 400 square feet, $1,800 a month, a life he'd never imagined living. He climbed the stairs, unlocked his door, sat on the edge of his bed in the dark, and for the first time since Le Bernardin, Marcus Blake understood that some mistakes don't get fixed. Some doors don't reopen. Some chances once thrown away dissolve into nothing. He'd wanted to be someone important, someone people noticed. He'd succeeded. He was famous now. The cautionary tale, the punchline, the idiot who dumped a billionaire. His phone buzzed. His mother calling for the third time this week. He didn't answer. What could he possibly say? Marcus lay back on the bed, stared at the ceiling. The apartment above him was playing music. Bad speakers, bass-heavy, shaking the thin walls. This was his life now, and he'd built every inch of it himself. 2 weeks after the gala, Marcus sat in a strip mall office in Newark. The fluorescent lights hummed. The carpet smelled like decades of cigarette smoke and broken dreams. A faded poster on the wall advertised workers' compensation law with a phone number that had probably been disconnected in 2008. Saul Greenberg looked exactly like a $200 consultation lawyer should. Rumpled suit, coffee-stained tie, reading glasses held together with electrical tape, but his eyes were sharp, calculating the odds before Marcus finished his first sentence. "Let me get this straight." Saul leaned back in a chair that squeaked. "You want to sue Alexandra Sinclair?" "Yes." "The woman worth $900 billion? "Yes." "Because she didn't tell you she was rich?" Marcus leaned forward. "She lied to me. She pretended to be poor for 5 years. That's fraud. Emotional distress. I supported her based on that lie. She owes me." Saul chewed his pen, looked at Marcus like he was watching a man volunteer for a firing squad. "You want to sue the woman who was paying your rent?" "I didn't know she was paying it." "Because you didn't ask." Marcus's jaw tightened. "She manipulated me, made me think I was the provider. That's psychological abuse. I have damages, lost career opportunities, reputational harm, emotional suffering." Saul set down his pen. "Kid, I'll send the letter. I'll take your $200, but you're making the biggest mistake of your life." "Just send it." Saul sent it. A demand letter for $5 million in compensatory and punitive damages, itemized pain and suffering from deception, loss of earning potential due to reputation damage caused by defendant's vindictive actions, intentional infliction of emotional distress. The response arrived 48 hours later. Marcus opened the envelope at a Starbucks in Astoria. He couldn't afford the coffee. He was using the free Wi-Fi to search job listings. The barista had stopped asking if he wanted to order anything. Debevoise and Plimpton. Again. Margaret Chen. Again. The letter was 3 pages. Marcus read it twice. Each time the numbers grew more devastating. "We represent Alexandra Sinclair in response to your lawsuit filed June 3, 2025. Your claim is rejected in its entirety. We countersue for defamation, $10 million. Your public statements to Page 6 Daily Mail and Business Insider have falsely portrayed Miss Sinclair as vindictive and manipulative. These statements are provably false and have caused reputational harm. Specific quotes: "She destroyed my career out of spite." False. Miss Sinclair made a business decision to divest from a firm engaged in fraudulent practices. She lied about who she was. False. Miss Sinclair never claimed to be poor. You assumed her financial status based on her appearance and lifestyle choices. Your assumptions are not her responsibility. This is revenge for a breakup. False. Miss Sinclair exercised her fiduciary duty as an investor to withdraw capital from an underperforming firm with ethical violations. Breach of ND. A $5 million. You signed a binding non-disclosure agreement. You have violated it repeatedly through media statements. Debt recovery. $961,000, principal, plus 8% annual interest over 8 months equals $1,024,000. Legal fees. We will seek reimbursement for all costs associated with defending this frivolous lawsuit, estimated at $500,000 and climbing. Total liability, $26,524,000. Settlement offer. We will waive all claims if you withdraw your lawsuit within 24 hours. Issue a public apology using our provided statement. Accept a permanent restraining order 500 yards from any Sinclair property, persons or business interests, lifetime enforcement. Submit to court-supervised psychiatric evaluation to assess frivolous litigation tendencies. Failure to comply within 24 hours will result in immediate countersuit filing, asset seizure to secure judgment, wage garnishment for 40 years, credit reporting of judgment rendering you effectively unemployable in any professional capacity. You have destroyed your own career. Mr. Blake, do not compound that error by attempting to blame Miss Sinclair for consequences you brought upon yourself. We await your compliance. Margaret Chen, Senior Partner. Attachment. Public apology statement. Mandatory language. No edits permitted. Marcus's hands shook. He called Saul. They're countersuing for $26 million. Saul's sigh carried the weight of experience. Yeah, I figured. Listen, kid, I'm withdrawing as your counsel. This is above my pay grade. And honestly, you don't have a case. You have a grudge. Those are different things. But she paid for your life for 5 years. She asked for nothing. You dumped her. She walked away quietly. Then you cost her investment portfolio money by being a fraud, so she pulled her capital. That's not revenge. That's capitalism. You're on your own. Good luck. The line went dead. Marcus sat in the Starbucks for 3 hours. He read the apology statement, read the restraining order terms, read the psychiatric evaluation requirement. At hour 4, the barista asked him to leave if he wasn't buying anything. He signed everything, withdrew the lawsuit, posted the apology to Instagram again. I apologize to Alexandra Sinclair for filing a frivolous lawsuit based on false claims. Miss Sinclair acted appropriately in all business matters. Any suggestion otherwise was wrong. I take full responsibility for my career difficulties, which resulted from my own actions and poor judgment. The comments came fast. Bro, just take the L and disappear. This is beyond embarrassing. Imagine being this down bad. He deactivated the account. This time, permanently. November arrived. 1 year since the breakup dinner. Marcus had settled into a rhythm at the warehouse. Wake at 2 p.m. Instant coffee. Bodega sandwich. Subway to New Jersey. Clock in at 10 p.m. Scan packages until 6 a.m. Subway home. Sleep until 2 p.m. Repeat. He'd stopped thinking about Silvercrest. Stopped checking finance news. Stopped imagining different outcomes. The past was a closed door. The future was too depressing to contemplate. So he lived in the present. 12-hour shifts, conveyor belts, the beep of the scanner gun. His coworker Ryan was 23. Cocky, always on his phone during breaks, always complaining about his girlfriend. Bro, I'm done with Jessica. Ryan scrolled through Instagram, not looking up. She's holding me back. Marcus scanned a package, loaded it onto the belt. How's she holding you back? She doesn't understand the grind. You know I'm trying to move up here, get promoted to shift lead, make decent money. She just wants to do Netflix dates and cook dinner at home. Sounds nice. Sounds boring. I want more. I want a girl who matches my ambition. Jessica's sweet, but she's basic. Works at Target. Happy with her little life. I need someone impressive. Marcus stopped scanning. Looked at Ryan. Saw himself 5 years ago. The same arrogance. The same blindness. The same equation that valued flash over substance. Ryan, let me tell you something. What? The person standing quietly beside you asking for nothing. They're not weak. They're the foundation. And you don't know the foundation is holding you up until you demolish it." Ryan laughed. "Nah, bro, you gotta level up. Can't let feelings hold you back from success. I thought the same thing once." "What happened?" Marcus went back to scanning packages. "I leveled up, straight into the ground." Ryan shrugged, uninterested. "You're being dramatic, Mark. I'm not trying to be stuck in the warehouse forever. Jessica doesn't get that." "Then you'll learn what I learned." "What's that?" Marcus's voice was quiet, flat. "That some people only learn by falling, and by the time you hit the ground, the person who could have caught you is gone." Ryan walked away, back to his phone, back to his plans to dump Jessica for someone more exciting. Marcus watched him go, felt nothing. Not pity, not frustration, just recognition. Ryan would make the same mistakes, would learn the same lessons. The cycle continued. At 6 a.m., Marcus clocked out. Jesus caught up with him in the parking lot. "Mark, you okay? You seem distant lately." "I'm fine." "You sure you look like you're carrying something heavy?" Marcus stopped walking, looked at Jesus, a man who'd worked the same warehouse job for 8 years, who went home to a wife and 3 kids, who coached his daughter's soccer team on weekends, who seemed genuinely happy with a life that Marcus would have called failure 5 years ago. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Do you ever want more money, better job, bigger house?" Jesus considered this. "Sure. Everyone wants more. But I got enough. My kids have food. My wife smiles when I come home. I sleep good at night. That's more than a lot of people have. That's really enough for you." "Mark, I came here with nothing. Literally nothing. I worked construction. I worked kitchens. Now I got health insurance, steady paycheck, time with my family. You know what that is." "What?" "Wealth, not money. Wealth. The things that matter." Jesus clapped Marcus on the shoulder. "Get some sleep, man. You look tired." Marcus watched him drive away in a 15-year-old Honda Civic. The car backfired. Jesus waved out the window unbothered. Marcus stood in the parking lot as the sun rose over the New Jersey Industrial Park. Wealth. The things that matter. He'd had that. A woman who loved him, who asked for nothing, who would have given him everything if he'd just seen her, and he'd traded it for a title on a business card and the apartment he couldn't afford. The news hit on a Tuesday. Marcus was scrolling his phone during lunch break when he saw it. New York Times. Alexandra Sinclair to wed Dr. James Morrison in private ceremony. His thumb hovered over the link. "Don't click it. Don't do this to yourself." He clicked. Alexandra Sinclair, heir to the Sinclair Global Trust, will marry Dr. James Morrison this weekend in Newport, Rhode Island. The ceremony will take place at the Breakers, the historic Vanderbilt mansion, with 800 guests expected. Morrison, 38, is chief of trauma surgery at Massachusetts General Hospital and a MacArthur Fellowship recipient. He met Sinclair 2 years ago during a hospital charity visit. In a rare interview, Sinclair spoke about the relationship. "James saw me, not my name, not my wealth, just me. That's the rarest gift anyone can give." Morrison added, "Alexandra is brilliant, compassionate, and real. Everything else is just noise." The couple will honeymoon at an undisclosed location before returning to their home in Manhattan's Dakota Building. 2 years. They'd been together for 2 years, which meant Alexandra had met James less than a year after Marcus dumped her. She'd moved on, found someone better, built a life. Marcus was still in the same warehouse, the same studio apartment, the same purgatory. Saturday came. Marcus didn't work weekends anymore. He'd been cut to 4 shifts a week when the warehouse reduced hours. Less money, more time to think. Both were terrible. He turned on the TV. Local news. Background noise. The anchor's voice cut through his daze. In society news, Alexandra Sinclair married Dr. James Morrison today in Newport, Rhode Island. Marcus's hand froze on the remote. The footage showed the Breakers. Aerial shots of the 70-room Italian Renaissance mansion perched on cliffs above the Atlantic. A massive white tent on the lawn. 800 guests in black tie. Alexandra in her wedding gown. Valentino. Custom. Simple elegance. No tiara. Just pearl earrings and a smile that could power the eastern seaboard. James in a classic tuxedo, looking slightly uncomfortable in the formal wear but completely at ease beside his bride. The ceremony was outdoors, ocean backdrop, string quartet playing Aaron Copland, American composer, American wedding. The camera caught James's parents, ranchers from Montana in their 60s. His mother wore a dress that probably came from Dillard's. His father's tuxedo was rented. They looked overwhelmed but happy. Alexandra was talking to them, holding the mother's hands, laughing at something the father said. She'd invited working-class people to a Vanderbilt mansion, made them feel welcome, made them family. The interview clip played, reporter shoving a microphone toward the couple. "Alexandra, you could have married anywhere in the world. Why Newport?" Alexandra's voice was warm, happy. "Because James's parents could drive here from Montana. They've never flown before. This was about bringing two families together, not making a spectacle." James grinned. "Plus my mom insisted on bringing her apple pie. You can't fly with homemade pie in your carry-on." Laughter from the reporter, from the crowd visible in the background. "What's the secret to finding true partnership?" Alexandra looked at James. The camera caught it. "Pure love. Uncomplicated. Real. Find someone who sees you. Not your resume, not your bank account, just you." James's turn. "And someone who doesn't mind that you still check on trauma patients at 2 a.m. because that's who you are." Alexandra laughed, kissed his cheek. The camera pulled back. More footage, the reception, first dance. James stepped on her dress. They both laughed. His parents dancing together, clearly out of their element but trying. Alexandra's friends from her 5-year experiment, librarians, baristas, people Marcus would have called beneath him, mixing with billionaires and surgeons. The final shot. Alexandra and James leaving in a vintage Rolls-Royce. She threw the bouquet. It was caught by a young woman in a simple dress. One of the librarians. The woman burst into tears of joy. Freeze frame on Alexandra's face. Radiant. Free. Happy. Marcus turned off the TV. He sat in silence. His studio apartment, 400 square feet. IKEA furniture, bare walls. His life work, sleep, repeat. Her life love, purpose, legacy, joy. He didn't cry. He'd used up all his tears months ago. Now there was just hollow acceptance. She'd found someone who saw her. Marcus never had. He'd seen a quiet librarian, a helpful girlfriend, a convenient support system. He'd never seen Alexandra, and by the time he realized who she was, she'd already moved on. 3 months later, Marcus was walking through Astoria after a shift. 4 a.m. The streets were empty except for delivery trucks and insomniacs. His phone buzzed. News alert. He almost didn't check it, but muscle memory won. Forbes. Alexandra Sinclair Lindqvist pledges $2 billion to Global Education Initiative. He stopped walking, clicked the link. Alexandra Sinclair Lindqvist announced today a $2 billion commitment to educational access and literacy programs across the United States. The initiative will fund scholarships, library construction, teacher training, and early childhood education in underserved communities. Speaking at the United Nations, Sinclair Lindqvist addressed the crowd, "We often measure success by what we accumulate. But true success is what you build with others for others. My grandfather taught me that character is the only currency that matters, and the people who see your character, not your capital, those are the relationships worth investing in." The pledge is one of the largest private educational commitments in U.S. history. Marcus kept reading. When asked about her 5-year period living in anonymity, Sinclair Lindqvist was philosophical. "I wanted to know if anyone would love me when they thought I had nothing. I got my answer. Some people failed that test, but one person passed it, And that's all you need. She was talking about James, not Marcus. Marcus had failed spectacularly. He pocketed his phone, kept walking. The sky was starting to lighten. Dawn coming to Queens. Jesus' daughter had gotten a scholarship. Full ride to college. From the Sinclair Foundation. Jesus had told Marcus about it last week. Pride in his voice. Gratitude. Hope for his child's future. Marcus had connected the dots then. But seeing it confirmed in print was different. Alexandra was helping people. Real people. People like Jesus. People Marcus used to ignore. He reached his building, climbed the stairs, unlocked his door. Inside everything was exactly as he'd left it, exactly as it had been for a year. Nothing changed, nothing grew, just existence. He sat on the edge of his bed, pulled out his phone, opened Notes app. 6 months ago he'd written something, a realization. He read it now. She didn't leave me because I wasn't rich enough. She left because I was empty, and I didn't even know it. Still true. More true now than when he'd written it. Marcus deleted the note. It didn't matter anymore. The past was dead. The future was a warehouse shift in 8 hours. He lay down, stared at the ceiling. The apartment above was quiet, for once. He thought about Le Bernardin, the manila envelope, the $8,000 check, the moment he'd decided to throw away 5 years for a trajectory that had led him here. One decision. 5 minutes. Everything destroyed. And somewhere in Manhattan, in the Dakota building, Alexandra Sinclair Lindqvist was probably asleep beside her husband, dreaming about schools and scholarships and the lives she was changing. She'd moved past Marcus so completely that he wasn't even a footnote in her story anymore. He was just a test she'd passed, a lesson learned, a closed chapter. Marcus closed his eyes. Sleep wouldn't come for hours. It never did anymore. But he tried anyway, because what else was there? A year and a half after the breakup, Marcus saw her one last time. It was Sunday, his rare day off. He'd decided to walk Manhattan. Nostalgia or masochism. The line between them had blurred. He avoided Tribeca. Too painful. Avoided 6th Avenue. Didn't want to see the Silvercrest building now occupied by a cryptocurrency startup. But Central Park felt neutral, public, safe. He sat on a bench near Bethesda Fountain. 11 a.m., families everywhere, joggers, dog walkers, people living normal Sunday lives. His phone buzzed. Jesus texting. "Mark, you want to come to Maria's soccer game? She's asking about you." Marcus typed back, "Maybe next week." He wouldn't go. He always said maybe next week. Jesus kept inviting anyway, kept trying to pull Marcus into the world of normal human connection, but Marcus preferred isolation. It felt appropriate, deserved. Movement caught his eye. Security detail. 4 men in dark suits, earpieces, moving with purpose. Marcus's stomach dropped. No, not here, not now. They weren't heading toward him. They were clearing a path around the fountain, polite but firm, creating a bubble of privacy in the public space. Alexandra walked into view, 30 yards away, with James and a stroller. They had a baby. Marcus couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't look away. Alexandra wore Loro Piana cashmere, jeans, Hermes sneakers, casual clothes that cost more than Marcus made in 3 months. But she looked normal, happy, her hair in a simple ponytail, minimal makeup, sunglasses pushed up on her head. James pushed the stroller with one hand. The other rested on Alexandra's back. Casual intimacy. Comfortable. They stopped at the fountain. Alexandra bent down to the stroller, adjusting a blanket. The gesture was tender, maternal. She said something to the baby. James laughed. They looked like any couple, any family, except for the security detail, except for the clothes that whispered wealth, except for the way they moved through the world with absolute confidence. James kissed Alexandra's temple. She leaned into him. They stood there looking at the fountain, completely absorbed in their private moment despite being in public. This was the life Marcus could have had. Sunday walks. A partner who loved him. Simple moments that mattered more than corner offices and client dinners. But he'd wanted the penthouse, the status, the impressive girlfriend who looked good on his arm. He'd gotten none of it, and lost everything. Alexandra turned slightly. Marcus held his breath. If she saw him, she didn't. Her eyes swept the area, but she was too far away. Even if she'd looked directly at him, she wouldn't have recognized him. The beard, the weight loss, the cheap clothes, the invisible armor of failure. They started walking. James said something. Alexandra laughed. A real laugh. The kind she used to give Marcus before he stopped being worth laughing with. The security detail followed. The bubble moved through the park, disappeared around a bend in the path. Gone. Marcus sat on the bench for another hour, watching other families, other couples, other lives that weren't his. Finally, he stood, walked to the subway, took the train back to Queens, back to the studio apartment, back to the life he'd built from the ashes of his ambition. He didn't cry, didn't rage, just accepted. This was his reality. And somewhere in Manhattan, Alexandra Sinclair Lindqvist was living hers. The distance between them infinite. Two parallel lines that had touched once, briefly. 5 years of intersection. Then divergence. She'd risen. He'd fallen. The math was simple. Present day. 3 years after Le Bernardin. Marcus was 35. He looked 45. The warehouse had aged him. Night shifts destroyed circadian rhythms, destroyed health, destroyed any illusion of a future beyond the next paycheck. He'd been promoted to shift supervisor, $24 an hour, a whole $6 more. He managed a team of 12, mostly good people, mostly struggling like him. Ryan had quit last year, broke up with Jessica like he'd planned, found an exciting new girlfriend. She'd dumped him after 3 months. Last Marcus heard Ryan was working retail in Connecticut, living with his parents. Marcus had tried to warn him, but some lessons require experience. Jesus was still there, still steady, still talking about his kids' achievements like they were front-page news. Mark Maria got into Rutgers full scholarship. Marcus had smiled. That's great, Jesus, really great. The Sinclair Foundation, they paid for everything, even her books and housing. My daughter is going to college, first person in our family. Jesus had teared up. Marcus had gripped his shoulder, shared the moment. That was as close as Marcus got to Alexandra now. Second-hand stories, the ripples of her generosity touching people he knew. He'd stopped Googling her, stopped checking news, stopped torturing himself with updates about her perfect life. But sometimes late at night the memories came anyway. Her laugh, the way she used to read to him when he was sick, the quiet competence with which she'd solved problems he'd thought were insurmountable, the patience she'd shown when he was stressed about work. She'd loved him, really loved him, not for what he had or what he could provide, just for him, and he'd valued that love at $8,000. Marcus sat in his apartment, 10 p.m., about to leave for his shift. He opened his phone, opened notes, scrolled to a note he'd written 6 months ago, the one he kept coming back to. She told me I was exactly the man I could become. I thought it was an insult. It was a warning. I became that man anyway. And she became everything I'll never have. He added one more line. You don't support me, Marcus. I was the gravity. And the moment you cut that gravity, you didn't fly. You drifted. He'd said that to Ryan once. Ryan hadn't listened, but the words were true. Alexandra had been the gravity, the foundation, the center. Marcus had thought he was the sun, thought she was orbiting him. But he'd been wrong. She was the sun. He was just a cold rock that had floated too close, soaked up her warmth, then drifted back into darkness when he thought he'd found something brighter. There was nothing brighter. He knew that now. Marcus closed the note, pocketed his phone, put on his warehouse vest. Time for work. Time to scan packages. Time to exist in the small gray world he'd created. Somewhere in Manhattan, Alexandra was probably putting her child to bed, reading stories, singing lullabies, living a life full of love and purpose and impact. Somewhere in Montana, James's parents were probably looking at photos of their grandchild, marveling at how their son had married into American royalty but somehow made it feel normal. And somewhere in Queens, Marcus Blake was walking to the subway, going to a warehouse, living a life that would never matter to anyone. The distance between who he'd been and who he was now felt like light years. But the distance between who he was and who Alexandra had become, that was infinite. He descended into the subway station, swiped his card, waited for the train. The platform was empty except for one other person, a young couple, early 20s, holding hands, laughing about something. Marcus watched them, saw his younger self, saw Lexi as she'd been. The train arrived, doors opened. Marcus stepped on. The couple stayed on the platform, still laughing, still together, still everything he'd thrown away. The doors closed. The train pulled out of the station. Marcus found a seat, put in earbuds. No music playing, just silence. He stared at his reflection in the dark window as the train hurtled through the tunnel. Hollow eyes, gray hair, the face of a man who'd learned every lesson too late. She didn't say a word when she left. But those jet engines screamed. And now, 3 years later, the silence was still the loudest thing Marcus Blake had ever heard. The train rocked. The tunnel blurred. The warehouse waited. This was his life. And somewhere far above in towers he'd never enter again, Alexandra Sinclair Lindqvist was changing the world. While he scanned packages, while he existed, while he paid every single day for 5 minutes of arrogance at a French restaurant. Some debts never get settled. Some prices never stop being paid. Marcus understood that now. The train emerged from the tunnel into New Jersey, the warehouse lights visible in the distance. He stood, grabbed the pole, prepared to exit. Another shift, another night, another small piece of the infinite payment plan for the biggest mistake of his life. The doors opened. He stepped onto the platform. Behind him the train pulled away, carrying other people to other destinations, other lives. Marcus walked toward the warehouse, alone, as he would be for the rest of his days. The foundation had crumbled, and there was nothing left to build on but regret.